Welcome to HSC Economics Made Easy. This video will introduce a new category of economic policy, microeconomic reform. Let's start with a definition. Microeconomic reform refers to market or industry level policy changes. They're aimed at increasing efficiency in an economy. This could often lead to greater aggregate supply. You can learn about these concepts in detail by checking out my videos about aggregate supply and economic growth. But here's a quick recap. There are three types of efficiency: technical, allocative, and dynamic efficiency. Technical efficiency is the ability of an economy to maximize output while minimizing input costs. It's productivity, but at a whole economy level. This is part of the rationale behind many microeconomic policies that increase competition and market forces. Policies such as privatisation is based on the assumption that when there's competition and a profit motive, firms and workers have an incentive to work harder, hence maximizing their output at the given cost and achieving technical efficiency. Next, allocative efficiency is achieved when resources are allocated to where they're most valued, reflecting consumer demand. This concept is often used to criticize government protection of certain industries. Protection gives industries an artificial advantage. This means that resources are allocated into industries that the market might not actually demand, which is an inefficient waste of resources. Therefore, by reducing protection, resource allocation would be more reflective of market forces. This shift in resources from inefficient industries to efficient is called allocative efficiency. Related to this is dynamic efficiency. To better understand this concept, let's define structural change. Structural change is when an economy shifts its resources between industries in response to a change in consumer demand, or if there's new technology or new foreign competition. Dynamic efficiency refers to how quickly an economy can respond to these factors through structural change. For example, let's look at Uber. The ride-sharing app was launched in late 2012, but was banned in Australia until late 2015. Since becoming legalized, they have become the market leader in ride-sharing and taxi services, showing how much consumers favor them. But for the 3 years that it was banned, consumers had no choice but to put their resources into the taxi industry. This resistance to structural change contributed to a lack of dynamic efficiency. This is again why microeconomic policies such as deregulation can encourage competition, putting pressure on firms and industries to be more responsive to consumer demand and technological advancements, leading to dynamic efficiency. Along with these efficiencies, you can talk about how microeconomic reform can impact aggregate supply. By increasing efficiency and productivity of resource use, you can increase output while minimizing the input costs. In a market diagram, this is a shift of the aggregate supply curve to the right. As you can see, national output is increased and price levels are lowered. Again, check out my aggregate supply video because I go through these concepts in more detail and provide examples too. So these concepts make up the rationale for economic reform. Now, I'll go through some general types of economic policies that you may come across. As mentioned above, deregulation is one type of microeconomic reform. It means to remove government-imposed restrictions and regulations in industries so that it can be more responsive to the market. Deregulation can also introduce more domestic or foreign competition to the industry, as it pressures existing firms to be more efficient, leading to lower prices and better quality goods and services to meet consumer demand. This can achieve all three types of efficiency, improving the long-term output of the economy and overall standards of living. One example is the deregulation of Australia's financial sector in the 1980s. This allowed more foreign competition into Australia's banking industry and made foreign funding more available for Australian borrowers. Another form of microeconomic reform is privatisation. This is when governments sell off public sector assets and enterprises. Not only do they get a boost in cash, which they can use to buy new assets, but this could improve efficiency in an economy. As mentioned previously, the assumption is that the private sector tends to be more productive, competitive, and responsive to consumers compared to the public sector because they have a profit motive. This again can lead to lower prices and greater quality goods and services for the consumer. This has been the rationale behind the privatization of enterprises such as Telstra and Qantas. Related to this is corporatization. This is when the enterprise is still owned by the government but operates independently as if they were private sector enterprises. Examples include Australia Post and Energy Australia. One more type of intervention in the microeconomic level is competition policy. Governments may introduce legislation and create agencies to enforce laws against anti-competitive behavior. Consumers benefit from industries with maximal competition as firms are pressured to innovate and offer low prices, as well as good quality goods and services to stay ahead. In Australia, we have the Australian Competition and Consumer Act of 2010, which prohibits anti-competitive behavior such as predatory pricing and price fixing through collusion. This legislation is enforced by the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission. There are a few more types of microeconomic policies that I'd like to cover in more detail in future videos. My next video will begin a series on microeconomic policies aimed at the labor market. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and follow us on Facebook to make sure you don't miss that. If this video has helped you, please leave a like and comment as well as share the video too. And I look forward to continuing to make HSC economics easy for you. See you next time.